Hello, welcome to That Board Game Show, a podcast all about tabletop gaming with two players. I'm Sonja Wood.
And I'm James Wood. And today we're going to talk to you about underwater cities, on Mars, coffee traders, and whatever else we feel like.
Yeah. And I've got a whole lot to talk about today because, you know why? Because my son James had his 30th birthday this week. Da-da-da-da! Trumpet blast, doo-doo-doo-doo. And it's very exciting, actually, because what do you think he wanted for his birthday? I'm going to see if anybody can guess. I'll give you a few moments. Board games.
How surprising.
Yeah. But before I go on to my sharing and talking about the 30th and all the excitement about the On Mars and coffee traders, why don't you tell the people about underwater cities, because didn't you put it up last week?
Yeah, the video for that went up last Friday as of recording this podcast.
That's what, the 16th of March or 15th of March, something
15th,
like that.
I think.
Yeah.
15th of March 2024. I did a solo showcase tutorial how to play explainer video for underwater cities, including the New Discoveries expansion. And quick summary of what underwater cities is. It's basically a worker placement, engine building, set collection game. So if you don't know what any of those terms mean, let me elaborate. So basically what you're doing in the game is you've got these, I think it's for a 12 worker placement spaces, and each worker placement space is tied to cards that you have in your hand. So each time you place a worker, you also play a card, and then the two play off each other. So sometimes you'll place a worker and then you'll be able to keep the card in play if it matches the color of the space you've just gone to. And basically what you're trying to do with all this worker placement, card play, set collection stuff is build out your own little private underwater city. So each player has a board in front of them, and you have these little city domes, little plastic half ball dome thingies. And you're going to be building those domes, and you're going to be constructing buildings. You're going to be building kelp farms and desalination plants and laboratories and all these things to improve your underwater cities and ultimately score the most points.
Or in my case, ultimately survive. And actually, you know what? It's very hard to talk about underwater cities on a podcast, for me anyway.
Yeah,
because
it's a difficult game to encapsulate in just a few words in audio.
But you know what's completely missing? You know what's completely missing on a podcast is you can't see the beautiful game. Well, I just want to say that I hope they watch the video.
Yeah.
Do you know why? Because you can see all the beautiful components. I love the components on underwater cities. I think it's a magnificent production. And I enjoy the gameplay as well, even though it's not cooperative. And I'm a cooperative person that likes to play cooperative games. So that is my preferred style or mechanic of playing games. But underwater cities is just a very... In fact, you know what people call it? What do you call it? Solo...
Multiplayer solitaire.
Multiplayer solitaire. It's very much that, wouldn't you say?
So the video I showed you, what I showed in the video is the solo mode, where it basically simulates another player by just blocking off a few worker placement spots each turn. And that's pretty much the only player interaction there is in the game, is people potentially blocking off the space you wanted to go to.
That you need to go to on the main board.
Board.
But your own player board is pretty much completely your own thing.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
making your own track and
building their own thing completely
in front of you.
But
yourself.
you don't do any actions on your main board. Your main board is just representative of the actions you're taking on the
main
your player board is representative of the actions you're taking on the main board.
Yeah. So
it's quite an involved, quite a complicated game by some standards.
And although we don't do game reviewing as such, it is in your top 10, I guess.
Yeah.
I know you've always loved it.
It's one of my faves.
Yeah.
For some reason, there's just a
talking
very pleasant
experience.
system, and you get your, especially in the later game when you really start getting your engine built, and you've got all your cards laid out, and you can do an action, and then that action triggers off this action, and then you get this bonus, which lets you then build that building, and you can get these really satisfying chain reaction actions on your turn.
Yeah, and as you can hear, James loves underwater cities a lot, but he also loves another game, and that is called On Mars. Now, I've got to tell you about On Mars because it's got quite a story. That is the game that I bought him for his 30th birthday because we had this big 30th birthday celebration because, decade number 3. And there was quite a build-up to On Mars because I couldn't find any to buy here in South Africa. And if we buy from overseas or internationally, or we have to have it shipped from somewhere else in the world, we have to
shockingly expensive.
We have to double the price, one.
At least.
And we have to be on our knees hoping and praying that we'll actually get it
arrives.
One day. And when you're spending a lot on a game, it just makes that risk of never knowing if you're going to get it just very high. So we prefer to wait and see if it arrives somewhere through one of our
friendly local game stores.
Yes, thank you.
Friendly local online game stores, more to the point.
Thank you to them for making it possible for us to get games. But yeah, so I found one. Only one. And it was actually on a clearance because it had been sitting on the shelf in this little friendly local game store for a long, long time because it was waiting for me to buy it, I'm sure. Yeah, for your 30th birthday. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all the detail about how we got this game because it had quite a journey. Somebody had to pick it up for us, and then that person was going somewhere else before they were coming to us, and then their car broke down, and then. So we actually, it's had quite an adventure on Mars to finally find its way to our table. And so Jamie got it for his birthday, and we did an unboxing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll put that on the Patreon page,
Yeah.
hey? Yeah. And so they can go watch that.
Yeah, so if you want to support the show and show your appreciation for what we're doing here, you can head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/thatboardgameshow, and we'll have that unboxing of On Mars there, because we just did it in our living room,
Yes.
very casual styles.
At home, because it was Jamie's 30th birthday day, and we were very excited about this. So I got our phone out and I filmed him unboxing. And you'll be able to see his smiley face, full of glee and happiness, because he got On Mars, the game he had been waiting for very long, because this was our first game from
Vitel Lacerda, the king of heavy games.
So we were diving into the heavy game arena, and we are not disappointed. No way. On Mars has been on the table now, and we've
Played it twice, and each session's taken... The first one was just over 4 hours, and the second one was just under 4 hours with 2 players.
And we enjoyed every moment. It's just beautiful. I don't know. I said to Jamie, are you going to do an explainer video for this one? And he said, unlikely. But maybe one day in the future.
When I've played it a lot, and I don't mind putting up a 4-hour-long explainer video.
Yeah. Let's ask them. If you want an explainer video, let us know.
Let us know down in the comments below.
Because if you ask for one, then maybe Jamie will do one.
If enough of you ask nicely. I'll pluck up the courage.
And now I must say that the next game was pretty much a combined thing. It wasn't just this On Mars for Jamie's 30th. It's called Coffee Traders because Jamie is a self-taught barista. So coffee is very much part of his life. And all of ours now, consequently. And
thanks to me caffeinating the family every day.
Yes. And we got this game, Coffee Traders. Again, it was one we were waiting for years. In fact, when it first came out, we knew then and there, this is a game we want to have. And we've waited for 3 years or whatever it is.
I think it only came out in 21.
22.
So we've only waited 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, that's not that long. But anyway, we got it and we did an unboxing, and that also put on Patreon. And it is all very wonderful and exciting because it didn't disappoint. I was a little bit concerned about Coffee Traders when we first got it, because when I was looking at other people's videos and stuff, I thought, I'm not so sure about the way it looked.
Oh, right.
I was a bit concerned about that.
It doesn't pop on videos.
No.
But in person, the graphic design and art is really good.
Yeah, and the components,
it's
the
one
whole
of those
production.
When you look at just the board, it's a huge board with loads of spaces and buildings and all sorts of things going on. So when you look at it just like on a video, you really don't get a sense of the detail that's
or
that's
the
there.
theme, or the theme even. But the moment you're looking at it on the table, you see all the additional
Yeah,
artwork.
you can see all the little touches and the little people walking up the hills with
Yes.
their bags of coffee on their back. And
Yes, exactly.
the little corral with all the donkeys. And
Yeah, and theme's very important to me. That I'm just one of those gamers that just loves the theme and loves cooperative games and so on. Even though Coffee Traders, again, isn't a cooperative game.
It's not even originally designed as a 2-player game. It's a 3 to 5-player game in its original inception.
But they've got a two-player.
But they've got a 2-player variant, which they've, fortunately for us, included in the box.
Fantastic.
So basically what that does is it simulates another player. We play it 2 players, and then there's like a AI bot called Andre, which is the name of one of the designers.
Thank you, designers. Your game is magnificent. We have thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, it's more heavy, so you can tell.
Not quite as heavy as On Mars, but close.
Yeah, we are diving deeper into the heavier games. We've been waiting to get to this place because we figured we weren't quite ready. I don't know if other people just dive in deep right at the beginning, but for us, it's been a progression.
It depends, yeah.
Yeah, we've gone light, medium, heavy.
We started with Catan and we've evolved from there.
Yeah. Actually, we started with Sorry and Monopoly and Clue.
Yeah. Well, everyone starts with those.
Yeah, through the childhood years, what we used to do is we used to get a new couple of games every year and for the family, for us to enjoy family board game night. And that has never died because now it's not just family board game night once a week. We try and get as much gaming in as we can because we love playing board games. We prefer to do that than other things.
Yeah, and you said earlier we had a big 30th celebration, and that 30th celebration consisted of me reading rules for On Mars and spending 4 hours playing it.
Yes.
That was the celebration.
And getting...
and visiting family and having...
Yes, and getting a coffee traders game and drinking coffee and yeah, as you say, enjoying family time. So it was a hit. It was a hit of a 30th of spending time reading rule books and playing board games. Yeah. It was fun.
And circling back to the On Mars thing, you mentioned that you're a cooperative gamer, preferably.
Preferably, yeah.
And we actually you left out the part of the On Mars story, that we ordered On Mars. Well, you ordered On Mars and the expansion for On Mars called Alien Invasion, which turns On Mars, which is a competitive game, into a co-op. So it adds 4 cooperative missions. And I think you ordered them at the same time, didn't you?
The details are a bit blurry now because it was quite a long time ago. But the one thing that I just know that stands out is the fact that we got the expansion before we got the game. It's the first time that's ever happened. We received an expansion for a game before we actually had the game itself.
So
and
that's
to
how
be
confident
honest,
we were going to love On Mars.
Yeah.
We just bought the expansion.
Yeah. How about
unseen.
that? But to be honest, we haven't actually played the expansion
No,
yet.
not yet.
So we can talk about
We're wrapping
that.
our head around the basics first.
Yeah, we've decided to give it a good while of playing that and get familiar with the main game, if I can call
How
it.
the game actually plays.
Yes, and then we will jump into the expansion.
Yeah,
and
because
then
the
we can talk
expansion
about that.
builds on the core systems and rules of the base game. So
I'm looking forward to the expansion very, very much because of the cooperative aspect of it. But this game this is interesting actually on Mars because there's a lot of collaboration going on during the game. So it's not actually cooperative, but it's collaborative.
Yeah.
I haven't experienced that much in other games.
No, it's pretty rare. It's very thematic because basically what you're doing is in the game you're representing, each player is representing a different like corporation or something. And each of you is building settlements and colonies and buildings.
You're colonizing
Mars. That's
and
the
we're
whole premise.
2037 or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Jumped in the time machine.
Very optimistic date, I think.
Yeah.
Considering it is currently 2024 and we have yet to send the first human to Mars. So colonizing it in 2037 would be an achievement of note.
It would be.
But
we're doing it on the table in imaginary
Yeah, we've
form.
done it already.
We've already
it's
done
sorted.
it. Yeah.
Mars is colonized.
Yeah. Didn't you send your name on the space on some?
2 or 3 times now.
Your name is there.
Yeah, NASA does a little thing with when they send their rovers to Mars. So the last one was Curiosity. They sent, I think, InSight was like a little drilling rover. They do a poll where basically they have a little plaque that they fix onto the rover. And anyone who submits their name through a form on the NASA website, they'll then, with a very high-powered laser, they etch all the names onto this little plaque.
But then where does the plaque go?
Physically gets bolted onto the rover, and then the rover goes off to Mars.
Yes, but now once the rover leaves Mars, does it stay there for always?
No, once the rovers are there, they're there. Yeah.
They stay there for always.
So far, we haven't figured out how to bring them back yet.
So your name is on the plaque roving around Mars for real?
I don't know if it's on. I don't think I sent it on Curiosity because I think that went before I knew about this thing. So,
I remember you telling somebody about this thing. I'm thinking of him now, and he was so excited. It's like he couldn't even let you finish talking about it. He's got to go and get his name.
Googling it as I spoke.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah,
but now we're playing the game.
Pass and a badge and all kinds of silly things.
But it's fun. So that gives you a little heads up as well, insight, a little bit of insight as to
how big a nerd I am.
As to how excited Jamie was about this On Mars game. Can you imagine? All those years ago, he was sending his name off to Mars. Anyway, he knows he'll never be able to be an astronaut, so he just lives it through.
I do it vicariously through cardboard.
Yeah, exactly. And we have not been disappointed. You were talking about colonizing Mars. It's extremely thematic.
Yeah. So what you were saying earlier about the collaborative nature is you're all doing your own thing and you're all competing in a way for the most points because it's a Euro game. But what you're doing on the board is you're having to actually
work together
a bit and you can benefit from each other's actions. So, for instance, one of the things you can do is once you've built like a greenhouse on Mars, then one player can upgrade that greenhouse. They get
even though they never built it.
And they upgrade it. Yeah, it doesn't matter who built it. It's now on Mars. It's free game for anyone to upgrade.
And I have a scientist that perhaps is involved in that. And so I can send my scientist there, but so can you use my scientist. So I can get a scientist which you can use.
If you have a scientist, you can now use my building that I upgraded. So I can upgrade the building. And I have the upgraded building card in front of me. If you get the scientist of the matching type, then you can put your scientist on my building, and now we can both use that building's special ability for free.
And so together,
there's the collaborative elements.
We can collaborate on Mars.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the end game goals is like you've got to get they call it the LSS, the life support system. So it's basically your habitation has to get up to these certain levels, and one player alone can't really do that. It has to be a combined effort.
Yeah. And all of this takes a lot of time, not as much time as it would take to actually physically go to Mars and do it. But it takes quite a while. In fact, it was funny, is we went upstairs, we have our game room, and we played on Mars, got it all set up and going. We came down the stairs a couple of hours later, and my husband Greg says, "So are you enjoying it?" So I said, "Yeah, we've done the first round." And it's a lot of fun. We'd only done one round. And normally we would have finished
2 or 3 games by then.
Finished a couple of games within the same period of time. But yeah, it's quite a beast. Yes and no. I mean, I don't know. I'm not finding it too much, I suppose. It's all independent for each individual, but
I think it helps.
I was expecting it to be more because they speak about,
how heavy it is.
Yeah.
I think it helps that it's using systems and mechanisms and elements that we're familiar with from other games.
That's true.
We're used to worker placement. We're used to action selection. We're used to set collection. We're used to,
Well, I'm so used to worker placement that it's actually catching me out on this game, if you remember. I keep wanting to do worker placements in the wrong way for this particular game, so I've got to rewire a bit of...
It's an interesting mix because it's essentially more of an action selection game, so there are actions on the board, and some of the actions you just declare that you're doing, and then that's your action for the turn. Because
you've got a battery building on your...
Yeah.
You've already built it, so you can just say, I'm going to upgrade my battery warehouse or whatever they call it in the game.
But then other actions require you to place a colonist on the space. So it's like, it's a bit of both. You're doing
Bit of both.
a bit of actual worker placement. You're doing a bit of action selection. You're doing, there's...
But because have some muscle memory when it comes to worker placement, my colonists just want to go everywhere and do all the things. And Jamie has to keep reminding me, you don't need your colonists to go there to do that. You can just declare, I'm going to do that now. And I don't actually have to place a little worker there, a little colonist. Yeah, so it's interesting. There's some new things to wrap your head around. And we're finding the heaviness of it good.
Yeah.
It's not
very
it's
engaging.
not off-putting at all.
The thing I
at
found
all.
very interesting is, I quoted those times of like over 4 hours for that first game. It did not feel like
Not
4
at all.
hours at the table.
Not at all. Maybe 2.
Yeah.
Half the time.
By the time we were finished, that first game was like, oh, it's midnight. It was surprising. It wasn't.
We didn't expect that.
It didn't feel like that amount of time had passed, and I think that's a very good mark for a game, is it's keeping you engaged and interested all the time, so you don't feel that passage of time.
No, you don't. It flies by. Flies by. Time flies when you're having fun.
That is with 2 players, so all of this is a 2-player experience.
Hence the name of our podcast, a podcast all about tabletop gaming with 2 players. That's what our podcast is all about. Even though sometimes we speak about our experience the other day or the last week or something when we had 4 at the table and we had hilarious fun. That was with wormholes, remember?
Yeah. That's in the previous episode.
So occasionally we cross the lines, our own lines that we put in the
allowed
sand.
to break our own rules.
Yeah, we break our own rules, yeah.
But yeah, it's mostly 2 players because it's primarily just the 2 of us. On Mars does also have a reportedly excellent solo mode, which I have yet to explore. I will definitely be delving into that at some point in the future.
And it might be that we can even entice a non-gamer, that being Greg, to the table, because he's not a gamer. He doesn't enjoy tabletop gaming like we do. It's not his hobby. He has other hobbies that he prefers to do. However, when we were unpacking Coffee Traders, he was, ooh, this looks interesting. And I was fascinated by that. I thought, oh, look at that. A person who's a non-gamer is shown some interest in this. But I think it was all because of the theme. Yeah.
I think if he sat and watched us for half an hour actually playing the game, he might lose interest fairly quickly.
But it just shows how much a theme can captivate somebody. Yeah. So if people...
And it can be enough for some people to actually hook them in. I mean, that's one reason games with intellectual property, things like Star Wars games and Dune games.
People who love that.
People who love that fantasy,
theme.
That theme, that story will play.
That world, as it was. They hear Star Wars as, and there's a game about Star Wars, and because they're a Star Wars fan, they'll might be interested.
Play a game that they otherwise would have no interest in.
And they're not gamers, and now then they become gamers because that's a good thing to become.
Generally, what happens once it sinks its cardboard hooks into you.
True, that's what happens. Okay, well, as usual, the time arrives for tea. So I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go put the kettle on.
Even though it's another hot day in Africa.
It doesn't matter. It's always tea time. Doesn't matter how hot it is. We've had a heat wave this last week. I tell you, we were sitting in the mid-30s. It wasn't pleasant. You're standing still and dripping. I was saying to Jamie, we have our own free saunas here in South Africa. We don't need a sauna. You don't have to go to the spa to go to the sauna. You just stand still and perspire, glow.
Especially if you're up in your games room, which is up in a loft.
Oh, yeah, then you really perspire. Okay, so I'm off to put the kettle on. Bye.
And if you would like to support the show, you can do so over on our Patreon page, patreon.com/thatboardgameshow, or by becoming a YouTube channel member over on our YouTube channel, where you can see those little behind-the-scenes videos and those couple unboxings we referred to in this episode, and various other unboxings, bonus episodes, all that kind of thing. And every little dollar and every little cent from those members and patrons is a great support to us to just keep the show on the road, keep the content coming, and keep it interesting and engaging and fresh for you. And with that, I shall say thank you ever so much for listening once again, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And remember to spread the joy of tabletop gaming.